Good afternoon, councillors, members of the public, officers. Welcome along. I declare this meeting open. I acknowledge the presence of the Youth Mayor, Sean Smith, and members of the Youth Advisory Council. Welcome along to you, and congratulations on the Shift Festival on Saturday. It was really good, so well done to all of you and all the many volunteers, including staff members. Councillor Hayward is an apology for tonight. Are there any declarations of interest, councillors? Thank you. We have received a question from a teacher of Year 5 and 6 Maidens Park Primary School. We'll be responding to those questions in writing. It's relating to the splash park. Can I have someone move the confirmation of the minutes of the previous council meeting? Councillor Cook, Councillor Steele, all in favour? That's carried unanimously, thank you. Are there any petitions, councillors? We have requests to make presentations tonight. Sean Smith requests approval to speak to item 10.3.1. Those who agree, please indicate. So that's approved. Chris Spence also wishes to speak on the same item. Those who approve, please indicate. That's approved. And Jim Stephen also wishes to speak on 10.3.1. Those who approve, please indicate. That's approved. So to each of those speakers, when we get to the item, which is not far away, I'll invite each of you up for 5 minutes and we will go forward from there. In fact, councillors, we will deal with that now. I'm going to deal with, there's 2 items on the agenda tonight, so we'll deal with those. The first item is 10.3.1. Mr. Sean Smith. Sean, come through to the lectern. Welcome. There's a clock in front of me showing 5 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councillors and members of the public. As I stand here today representing not only the Youth Advisory Council, but also a majority of young people that are vastly underrepresented in this chamber. I'm here to encourage you to endorse a recommendation of the site that the Youth Advisory Council, Community Partnerships Department and the Bunbury community have worked hard to achieve. It is important to the Bunbury youth community that this item is not delayed and that we, the steering group behind this project, enter into the next exciting stage. You've already heard me speak on why this project is important to the community. The youth precinct location underwent extensive consultation period, a feasibility study in which the broader Bunbury community chose Luciana Park for a location for a youth precinct. After the council endorsement of the public feedback period of 30 days, returned a high number of submissions and various submissions of varying backgrounds, ages and demographics, which is represented here tonight. With an overwhelming 80% of respondents in support of the location choice, council must hear the voice of the youth and broader community. To address some of the feedback against the proposal and concerns the site may be an eyesore, we do not have a design concept yet. I'm going to use an analogy. If you are going to build a house, you have some ideas of what you want to be part of that design, but you don't design your house until you have your land. The location absolutely encourages the design of the location. To those in the community that have expressed concerns about the entry statement coming to the city and the design, I invite them to be part of that process in the consultation design, which is our next process. The youth precinct will be a multi-use facility that caters to the whole and wider community. We are pushing for a new community asset which will enrich the CBD and activate an area that is zoned for these such activities. The precinct will be a gathering point for families, youth and community for daily use and events. Such events as the Youth Shift Festival, which we had on the weekend, saw over 2,500 people partake in that free community event, from preschoolers all the way to grandparents. The precinct is not intended nor will be designed to encourage antisocial behaviour, rather to present and tackle it. It would be grossly irresponsible to label all youth gathering together as undesirable or disruptive. Young people are the symptoms of their environment and the community around them. Creating community facilities that provide alternative preventative options and build positive, healthy communities should be one of the absolute forefronts that the Council undertakes. By endorsing the location as the precinct, you are saying to young people in Bunbury's community that they are an important part of the community and the future growth. The location is the most accessible out of the highest scored locations during the survey and the matrix that we undertook. It's central and has the most accessible proximity to the facilities and public transport that most young people use and is usable all year round, no matter the weather conditions. The Youth Advisory Council is well supported by the Community Partnerships Department and to resource to deliver a unique new asset which has been identified and being led by a group of young people. This cannot be delayed to wait to be part of a different and broader CBD or foreshore plan. 2 years in local government perspective is very quick, but in 2 years to a young person is quite a long time. There is community backing behind this project and the energy from the young people involved. It is utmost important to the youth community that this project proceeds from here. I strongly ask that the Council endorse this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spence. Welcome to you, Chris. The same applies. There's a clock in front of me that'll guide your timing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, members of the public. As a new house owner in Bunbury, I come here with sort of, let's say, open eyes, unfettered by any prejudice. And so I'd like to sort of just congratulate you on your initiative, and I am absolutely for development of facilities for the youth, certainly in a specific environment. And thank you, Sean, also for your comments. I'm going to pose some questions, probably more than statements. And each of the councillors will have received an email from me previously, and thank you to those that responded. But looking at some information about skate parks, and as you can see, I'm probably nudging a bit outside of the traditional skate park user. But publicskateparkguide.org does say that the normal age of a skate park user is under 18. Well, I would say that probably is outside the majority of the population within Bunbury. And I question, how does 426 engagements and 177 map points, is that truly representative of the wider community? In fact, if my information is correct, that's probably less than 0.5% of the community have actually responded to the survey that has been conducted. And I think it's important to sort of just take a sentence from your own report, which says, whilst young people and existing users have been targeted, the consultation process is open to the whole community. Now, I would suggest that there's probably or possibly a little bit of leaning with regards to how that criteria could have been presented. Of course, Luciana would be a preferred site. I think there'd be 101 organisations within the community that would love to have a location of Luciana as a spot to focus their particular activity. However, is it the best use of Luciana? I mean, that's possibly open to discussion, and that leads me on to another point in a minute. Also, skateboarding is now recognised as a sport. Many will know that it is introduced into the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo. So already skateboarding is being elevated to a competitive entity. And I think that's important to recognise, because does that open up other opportunity for, let's say, a wider precinct that also engages with other sports, competitive sports? And that could be tennis or basketball or cricket, beach cricket, five-a-side football, other sporting activities that are actually sports and considered as sports and not just leisure activities. And I suppose a final point would be, that's a nice piece of land. It's on the cut. It's opposite that fantastic new development for family entertainment. You've got the nationally or internationally recognised attraction of the Dolphin Centre. Could that in the future be utilised for something different than a skate park? Do we know? There's a lot. WA is growing, expanding. Bunbury is the second city of WA. So what are the opportunities for tomorrow, which may be constrained were we to put a skate park there today? And what I'd also just mention was is that there's a working party that was put together, and I think the top three sites had respectively 71% support, 73% support and 75% support. With a membership of 6 people in the working party, maybe 1 or 2 different decisions could have changed the preferences that were the outcomes of that survey, that working party. So all I would say, just in summing up, as a resolution, is there a possibility that one can actually go back to the drawing board and even though the original survey was for the community, it probably was targeted towards those that are going to be users, and is there an argument to say that we should maybe extend that to the wider community by showing that there is...
Mr. Spence, I'm going to ask you now to take a seat.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I now invite Jim Stephen. Welcome to you, Jim.
Thank you, Gary. Councillors, I've always viewed Bunbury as the Western Australian equivalent of Sydney, and from that perspective I'll suggest that if we look at Bennelong Point in Sydney, for almost 200 years that piece of land lay virtually without use, until a time came, but more importantly an idea came along, and from that point on the Sydney Opera House was built. But before they built the Sydney Opera House, they built Luna Park. Now they gave Luna Park a very, very nice piece of land on the harbour, but it wasn't the best piece. It wasn't Bennelong Point. And here we are in 2019, and I reckon there's going to be people prepared to drive across Sydney to go to Luna Park, but I can guarantee you there are plane loads of people prepared to fly across the planet to go to the Sydney Opera House. The Sydney Opera House stands at the northern gateway to the central CBD of Sydney. And what that building says about Sydney and its people says a heck of a lot more than if they built Luna Park on Bennelong Point. Now here I am, a tourist, and I'm driving down Kambana Drive, and I come across Leschenault Inlet and I say, wow, that's really pretty. And then I go past the Dolphin Discovery Centre and say, wow, that's world class. In fact, people come from around the world to visit the Dolphin Discovery Centre. I then go past Kambana Bay and think, gee, Bunbury's really got a lot going for it, and I'm waiting for the city centre, and I come over the bridge and I see a 1-storey building, half vacant, and the other half a pool hall or equivalent. And I think, on the best prime intersection of Bunbury, is that the best Bunbury can do? And then I look across the side of the road where there is proposed to be a skate park and a youth precinct. And I wonder, is that what we want the future tourists, residents, people who venture to Bunbury see as the introduction to Bunbury on what I suggest I know to be the prime, visible, undeveloped piece of land in Bunbury. Now look, I've got nothing against the skate park. I used to have a skateboard. I've got broken bones to prove it. But when I think of skating, skateboards, I think of surf. I think of the beach. I think of the ocean. I think of the back beach. And as Chris said, one of those places itemised was in fact the back beach north of the car park. And I think, wow, perfect. What a place for a skate park. What a place for young people to congregate. But really, a piece of land which is absolutely irreplaceable in Bunbury, a piece of land which appears to be burning a hole in our pockets. And I think, well, once we spend that piece of land, it is spent. I think if we're going to spend this piece of land, it should be well and truly invested. Now, councillors, if you had the personal choice right now to choose what you would do with that piece of land, I doubt that being a skate park and a youth precinct would be on the top of the list. And if it isn't on the top of the list, it cannot be that piece of land.
Thank you. Councillors, we have the executive recommendation there. I think Councillor Kelly by a short nose. Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to move the executive recommendation.
Second to Councillor Steele. Councillor Kelly.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. And thank you very much for the three speakers. Very well spoken, each of them, Mr Mayor. I checked on my records, on my email and in my computer on when we started this. It was 2 years ago that I first got a notification from Mr Dixon about getting something happening. What it has morphed into is a youth precinct, not just a skate park. It's not a skate park, it's a youth precinct. And indeed, it's a precinct for all people. Indeed, when I looked at it, it said the City of Bunbury sought to enhance community wellbeing and the quality of life of the people who live and work in Bunbury. And the next bit said, for all age groups and abilities, being able to access a high standard of recreation facilities. And these facilities make a significant contribution to community health and wellbeing. The whole, I suppose, impetus about it was that why wouldn't we do something for youth in the town? We are doing it for our young people, and it's an investment in youth, and that's an adage that we all adhere to. We should invest in our youth and we should continue to do this, and it is an area for all ages as well. It is not just a skate park, it is a youth precinct for youth and for their parents, their brothers, sisters, grandparents, aunts, uncles, etc. I heard a lot of discussion about why we would put something on this piece of land. The wonderful thing about this piece of land that's not going anywhere, it's not going to go away, and it will be there for significant time in the future. At the moment, this youth precinct is the best use for this land at the moment, and that's why we're coming to this vote tonight. It may well be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years that there may come along some other idea for that plot of land. It may be a Smithsonian, it might be a gallery of some description, we don't know yet. But in the interim, I'd suggest that the best use for it at the moment is for that youth precinct. The land's not going to go away, and again, I think all of the youth would also recognise that in 20 years, if skate parking or youth precincts became redundant, then there's another use for it. I began by calling it Destination Park, a place close to the Bunbury CBD, designed and promoted to attract locals and visitors, particularly young visitors, and it brings a social, cultural and economic benefit to the city. It also brings an open-air recreational facility which says that we do celebrate what we have here, and that is a facility for people on the doorstep of the CBD. I think it's an idea whose time has come. Let's not be afraid of it. Let's invest in our youth and ensure that parts 1 and 2 of the motion tonight are passed. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Steele.
Over 12 years ago, my connection, my affinity with this land started, and that's when the journey began. I acknowledge the people who have been in touch with the concerns that it's an eyesore or the wrong location. I just don't agree. What people will see as they come over the bridge is life, parents, carers, grandparents, and our youth. Our youth will have a place for them to have ownership of, a place to say we hear you and we value you as part of our community. It will be a destination that will not only attract locals, but be another reason for tourists to visit our great city, a place that will start connecting our city and the businesses within the CBD to Marsden Waterfront and our newly developed Kambana Bay. It will be a place that people are happy to come together and hang. It shows our city's alive, buzzing and vibrant. I have no doubt that the city will do an amazing development of the youth precinct. They will take us on the journey and will listen to people's concerns and wants and needs. It will be an amazing asset to our city, one we should not be scared of, but one we should embrace.
Thank you. Speaker against, Councillor Steck.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and I also have a pro forma,
Thank you.
which I'll read out to you, sir. That the Council requests the Chief Executive Officer to research Pioneer Park, formerly Russell Esplanade, as an option for the proposed youth precinct and report back to Council within this regard as soon as possible, and in any case prior to the end of May 2019, sir. Well, let me begin by saying we don't own that land for a start. It's Western Australian government-owned land. And the other thing is that I doubt if they would actually approve that land for such a use. There is no way that I think that the community at large doesn't want a skate park, because we all know we do. And I completely support that and have been saying that for years. I've been here for a very, very long time and have been waiting for teenage use in this city, or some infrastructure for it. I also know that culture with arts and precincts and youth go together. And the proposal that I would like to put forward is it's a bigger parcel of land. It's half an acre. We own it and we can go ahead with it like that and get funding for it. The bowl's already been cut out, so the cost to construct the skate park would be a lot less. Would also save council money for watering of the lawn and that area. Presently we don't use it. It hasn't been used since 1914. The last time it was used when we dug out the rest of the bowl was in 1985. This park wasn't even considered in the mix, not at all. And yet it's absolutely by the beach. You can put a webcam on it, beam out Scotty to the rest of the globe and say, look how great Bunbury is with the sunsets. Look at skating there. So I don't think we've thought outside the square in looking at the infrastructure we've got in natural assets there. The other thing I'd say is that site is going to be absolutely very, very costly to get it together. We looked at alternative uses and some of those were up to $6.5 million just to get it to construction level and finalised level. So when you're looking at a skate park, you can't just say that it's going to be a precinct and a skate park and everything else, because it's actually, what I'm proposing is a much bigger parcel of land. It's in a beach area, there's toilets there, there's infrastructure there, there's already another park over the road, which is the Runners Club and things like that, so kids can go and use that facility as well. There's people already using that park to walk their dogs and run on and things like that. It's already a public open space. We don't have any limitations to use that parcel of land, and it's a stone's throw from the shops, it's a stone's throw from the schools, like the Bunbury Senior High School and other places. So I really think we should go back, let the CEO and his team come back with us to the end of May. I don't think that's a big ask, considering that this is a very, very powerful decision that we will be making, because don't forget, this decision is in perpetuity. It's in perpetuity, because there's one thing I know, is once you give something, it's very hard to take it back. Very, very hard. And I do know that, as I said, I think that the state government would be very, very reluctant to actually use that parcel of land for a skate park, and they own it, so they will get the final say. So we could be steering ourselves right up the garden path, because at this point, Mr CEO, have we asked them? Have we asked the state government, can we use that parcel of land for a skate park?
You're asking me to ask the CEO, aren't you, Councillor Stick?
Yes, please,
Yeah. Have you had that conversation, Mr CEO?
Through Mr Mayor, the site is a reservation vested in the City of Bunbury for recreation purposes.
Could I ask a question, Mr Mayor?
I think Councillor Stick is still completing her debate. She's only got 50 seconds to go.
Thank you, sir, and I won't go any further. I just think, councillors, you are entrusted to the community. It is the entire community, not 600 people, so please do not vote for this right now. At the end of the month, it's not going to kill you.
You have a question, Councillor Warnock?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Pioneer Park, we're talking about the park behind the telecentre, is that right?
The call
Correct.
centre, yeah.
So there's not an issue with construction there? That used to be...
We're not dealing with that at the moment, Councillor Warnock.
But can I ask a question about Pioneer Park? Because I seem to remember
Councillor
12
Warnock,
years
we're not-
ago it being a burial
Just take
site.
a seat, please. Take a seat. Now, I'll explain where we're at. We're not dealing with Pioneer Park. Councillor Stick indicated that she has a alternative during her debate against the executive recommendation. So we're not discussing Pioneer Park right now. Speaker 4, Councillor Morris.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I guess I've dealt with teenagers most of my adult life in the realm of teaching high school and also employing young people in my shop. One of the things that I found to be able to get across my points to the kids, let them know you care. If you let them know you care and you're doing outside activities, they actually listen to you. One of the things that I hope our young people will hear us is say that we can build a youth precinct. Now, there was a headline in one of the papers last week. It said, Bunbury Youth Precinct on Prime Block, ? Was that to say that they're not suitable to be on prime land? Because if you're a young person and you're reading that, that's exactly what those people are looking at. We're not good enough to be on prime land. That area is zoned in relation to the state government as recreation and open space. And that's exactly what we're looking at, recreation and open space. Now, we had one speaker say that, talking about the Sydney Opera House, it used to be a tram. That used to be the tram station out in Bindalong Point. They tore it down and put that in. Nothing is permanent. But what we're looking at is something in relation to our youth. We complain that once the kids graduate from high school, they leave our city and they go to the big smoke. Why? Do we look after our youth? We try. But if we turn around and say no for something like this, in terms of a youth precinct, and saying that it's important enough to be on prime land, I think we're giving a big statement to the youth in this city that we do care, and we do care about the activities. We want it to be family-oriented. It's not just for teenage boys on a skate park. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a blank canvas in which ideas will be coming to us, and we as a council will then go out to public consultation to do it all over again. But those young people sitting in the gallery right now, they're going to be family. They're going to be parents by the time anything is actually built. It's going to be their children that will benefit. It's time that we stood up and saying, yes, let's do it. Thank you.
Speaker against, Councillor Smith.
Mr Mayor, I wish to make it crystal clear that I'm not against a youth precinct. In fact, I'm totally support a top-notch facility for our young people. It's just the site that I find problematic. There's been some intimation that the site's too good for youth. That's not the case at all, and it certainly would not be my view of the way this has been presented. I also congratulate the three speakers tonight. This is a piece of land near the bay, the estuary, the channel running along to the flood control gates, the bridge runs the length of the site. It's the first thing you see when you come over Kambana Bridge. With the development of the Kambana foreshore, the beautiful footbridge that is already featuring in fantastic shots of Bunbury, we've made a good start on making Bunbury look great and to make a good impression. This is one of the premier sites in Bunbury. It belongs to the whole of the community and it should be used for all generations, and including tourists and visitors to Bunbury. You can't get away from the fact, and I quote Mr Ray Frasina here, who said it forms part of the first critical impression of Bunbury. And to again quote Mr Frasina, on which I agree with him, this is the site for a building of significant architectural merit. I'm probably alone on this, but I personally would like to see a modernist contemporary art gallery and sculpture park on that site to be enjoyed by both young and old. Now, many of you have heard and perhaps visited Mona, the Museum of Old and New Art in Hobart. That gallery alone has rejuvenated Tasmania almost single-handedly by increasing tourism to Tasmania by an extra 400,000 people a year. I'm sorry, but a youth precinct ain't going to do that. We want people to come and live and visit Bunbury. We want our shops full and we want employment here for our young people so they stay here. And if we're not going to do it because we don't plan to get the best out of our built environment. Once we build something on this site, it will be there forever, no going back. A few days ago, we were mailed a copy of the Leschnoll Inlet Master Plan for all of those areas, and I understand it was done 6 or 7 years ago after considerable public consultation and approved by Council. It appears we are deviating again from that plan in an ad hoc way. What we have been given so far does not explain how the precinct will sit within this site. I'm also concerned about the safety aspect, as the site is bounded on 3 sides by busy roads, in the case of Blair Street, a dual road. I'm also concerned about the fragmentation of development in the area. A splash pool on Kambana, on one site, Kambana foreshore on another, and now this proposed youth precinct on Luciana Park. When is this council going to stick to a plan, a long-term plan? And I take on board what Mr Stevens said about Bennelong Point. That actually happened. And how would we be without the Sydney Opera House these days? My vision is that Bunbury will perhaps not have a Sydney Opera House or a Mona, but we will have something that will attract people. My objection is not anti-youth, quite the contrary. I feel we should support our youth in every way we can. It's just that I find this site is problematic for that reason. Thank you.
Thank you. Further speaker 4, Councillor McCleary.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. All I've heard tonight is no, 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 no. Problems, no. Youth don't know any better. We know
Point
best.
of order, sir. That is absolutely not correct. Can the councillor please withdraw that statement?
Thank you, Councillor Stick. Councillor McCleary, continue.
Thank you. Let's not smash the hopes of our youth. Let's not smash the ideas they have, the vision they have. Let us encourage it. Okay, so their journey may find them having to change things a little bit. We're living in fear that perhaps there will be antisocial behaviour there, or that the people coming across the bridge mightn't like the building that's there. This is all an assumption. I want to see our youth being engaged in planning of Bunbury. This is a wonderful opportunity. It's scary, totally, my God, to think that the youth are going to plan something and I haven't got my thumbs over them and bearing down on them to make sure that they make the right decisions. Let them run with it. You'll be surprised what they'll end up with. We don't know what the building's going to look at. You are arguing about a site. If they get it wrong, we'll change it. Okay? At this point in time, you were speaking of, for instance, Councillor Smith said, a museum or an art, a passive vision. We want action in Bunbury. Okay, if I come over the bridge and I see children playing and parents there, I'm thinking, wow, this city invests in its youth. This city respects its youth. This city wants to have the answers and the questions and wants to listen to our youth. This is where I want my children to grow up, because I come from a family where my father said no before I even opened my mouth what he was going to say. And he used to say things, well, if you were meant to fly, God would have given you wings. And so I think that we need to reassess ourselves, take the fear out of it, encourage the outdoor activities these youth want to do. It's in the Olympic Games now, so there's going to be a lot more people and young children wanting to be able to access a skate park and other youth environmental areas that will be down in that area. I didn't at first, when it was first put to me, I thought shock horror, oh no, we certainly don't want to have that down there. But then I did my research, and it can be a beauty. To me, action is beauty, and that's what these youth are asking us for. We have a YAC, we have the Youth Advisory Council. We need to listen to them, not give them lip service only. Otherwise, they'll go away, they'll despair. We have mental health issues in our youth now. What we need now is something for them to do, something for them to take and actually have ownership of. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to be able to do that. So I'm all for it. Where is it going? I don't know. Maybe the government, the state government, will say, no, you can't have it here. But then we will sit down and it will be planned again with our youth as to where the next move will be. Let's not say no now before we've gone through and done this journey. So I would advise, and I would prompt everybody in this council to grab hold of the reins with the youth and feel their energy, excitement for this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be speaking.
Mr. Mayor, I move a procedural motion that we defer this matter for 6 weeks, please, sir.
For 6 weeks, and the purpose of the deferment?
I think, sir, that there needs to be further information clarified on the actual site.
Is there a seconder to that deferment? Councillor Smith. Do you wish to speak any more to that? So the motion is to defer this matter for a period of 6 weeks to enable the CEO to give further consideration to the site. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. There's a few other questions that I'd like to ask about the site, and I'll give them to the CEO in the morning, sir.
Okay. I'll put that motion then. All in favour of deferring this matter for 6 weeks to enable that work to be done, please indicate. Those against? That's lost, and Councillors Steck, Smith and myself voted for. We turn to the debate. I'm going to speak against this. I just want to make a few points. No one on this council is against a youth precinct. I think that point's been made very clear. The other point I want to make is that the City of Bunbury does invest heavily in youth within our city. Youth within our city. We also invest heavily with the state government and the federal government in facilities for youth that don't reside within our city. Those 2 points need to be made. The reason why I'm speaking against this is because I'm concerned that we haven't yet considered the outcomes report that was commissioned by the city and by the Bunbury Development Committee in December last year to consider the linkages, if there are any, and I'm sure there are, between Kambana Bay, Mangrove Cove, Luciana Park and the CBD. There may be no issues at all, there may be a few. I understand from the CEO that that report is going to be presented to us in the next council round of meetings. I'm also not that greatly concerned, but a little concerned about the vesting order, and that's been raised by some here tonight. What does the vesting order enable the city to do? It is clearly zoned for recreational use. Does that enable us also to build ancillary structures? I don't know. I suspect it would, but I don't know. So I want to know those things. I also want to know, if we do go ahead with Luciana Park, how are we going to landscape that area? Is that going to be an important consideration that the consultant, if this gets up, will also be looking at, to take into consideration the issues that have been raised tonight verbally and also in written responses to our invitation to make public comment? So let's be clear, no one is opposed to a youth precinct being developed within our city, and we also invest heavily in our youth in our city. Speaker 4, Councillor Brown.
This site is an outstanding accessible location with views of the inlet and its very own beach. It deserves an outstanding concept, and I can't wait to see the final design. It is the entrance to Bunbury, the physical link between the city and Kambana Beach, and was identified as a fantastic treed park in the Leschenault Inlet Management Plan of 2014. At the moment, apart from 3 shelters and a barbecue area, it is dry and uninviting. The site needs an outstanding concept plan to build on that vision of the 2014 management plan that creates a safe and inclusive space for our kids that really does have a wow factor. I believe that the community wants something really special developed, and I really want to see a concept that supplements the wow factor of the Dolphin Discovery Centre, Kambana Beach and the Withanji Bunja. This concept plan will have to be bold and imaginative to fulfil its potential. What it contains will be left up to the community, the designers and the YAC, who have all done a great job in getting this exciting project this far. I do like the idea of creating a coastal precinct, but this site offers a year-round alternative. From all the feedback and submissions that I've read and heard, I think we can all agree on one thing, and that is we all have some huge expectations for this site. And if all the segments of this puzzle come together, it will fulfil its potential. I am therefore looking forward to an excellent concept plan for Luciana Park, and I'll be voting for the recommendation.
Further speaker against? Councillor Kelly, close.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just very quickly, in 2 years we have done the work. We will get it right. It will look good. We will continue to invest in our young folk. One day there will be something completely different there. So let's just give it a crack and support this and ensure that we send the right messages. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put it all in favour, please indicate. Those against? That's, well, we do record. That's carried, and against were Councillors Smith, Stick and myself. Thank you. We move on to 10.4.1 and we invite a nomination for this steering committee. Councillor McGrath.
I'm happy to move it and nominate Councillor Brown for that position.
Councillor Brown, are there any further nominations?
Yes, please, sir.
You wish to nominate?
Yes, sir.
Right. So, councillors, are there any further nominations? Just, there's a slip in our little voting pockets. Just tick Councillor Brown or Councillor Steck, and the CEO will pick them up. Yep. Yep. Okay, so Councillor Brown has been elected through that process. Can I have someone move A and B with Councillor Brown being the nominee?
I'm happy to move.
Councillor Steele moves, Councillor McGuire seconds. All in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillors, thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you, officers. Thank you, members of the public. I declare this meeting closed at 6:16 p.m.
Didn't have much on the agenda.
6:16 for one item, basically.
No, because we had speakers. Not all of them. We had speakers.
Yeah, that's true.